A couple of weeks ago, I started on the origins of narcissism, and I'd concentrated especially on the biblical. Today, I'm going to be looking at the environment. Welcome back to my channel. It's dedicated towards creating narcissistic abuse awareness and more so from a biblical standpoint. And I'll also be discussing other general life issues. Narcissism is the love of self. However, what I'm looking at is narcissistic personality disorder. So when I say someone is a narcissist, all my videos, I'm talking about the extreme, those known to be in the cluster B. The cluster B is usually diabolical. There's unrest when it comes to these people. The serpent was an animal which was taken over by this fallen cherub. He was once a glorified cherub. He was a worshipper. He lied to the Adam family. Eve ate the fruit first and then gave it to Adam. Adam, who should have known better, ate it. And I believe Adam was already a sellout. The fact that he was silent the entire time, and when God came, he was like, the woman, you know, the blame shifting, the origin, we find it there. So uncovered souls have that ability of, they stay silent in a situation. They know what is going to be. Instead of them speaking up, they keep quiet such that the other person steps forward and takes the fall after they say that it was so and so, and yet they knew the place was slippery. They could have even told the person the tin you were carrying was dripping the oil. Instead of them speaking up, they keep quiet. When someone falls, they step in. It was so and so's fault. The tin you were carrying. Had they spoken earlier, you know, so and so your tin is dripping, one would have stopped, you know, change the tin. Narcissism, like I said, is on a spectrum. I'm dealing with narcissistic personality disorder at the extreme end. These are people who have got a grandiose sense of self-importance. They have an insatiable need for attention, adulation, and affirmation. And they lack empathy for others, among a plethora of other issues such as manipulation, arrogancy, pride, entitlement about everything regarding life. They're entitled to everything. You know you're the second-class citizen. Narcissists are made. The Bible clearly tells us, train up your child in his way, he shall not depart from it. Many times we Christians think it's just applicable to the good-natured person. And when someone is bad-natured, we think we can pray these people out of that situation because there is nothing impossible with God. Well, the thing is that training up is sowing. They shall not depart is reaping. That is a principle. But for some reason, it just flies out of our heads. It flies out of our being, our souls, when it comes to a difficult person. People start out in life, they meet along the way, they decide to settle, they get married, and the family has started. The man in this case has maladaptive behaviors. Being a church girl, we are told, pray fast, believe God, the man will change. You know, nothing is impossible with God. But you find that this person doesn't change. If anything, their character seems to explode by the day. They actually tell you, you know, when someone is about to give birth, the birth pains are intense. So you're actually almost at the end of it. Don't give up. Pray, my sister. Travail, travail. Others even tell you to toil. You toil. You actually toil. There are certain times when the person is lovey-dovey. Person starts being abusive. Maybe they are jeering, they are quarrelsome, they are condescending towards you. They start making you walk on eggshells. You realize there are certain things you can't discuss. There's a way you must frame the question. You must frame the issue that is hurting you, that they have caused, before you speak. You must wait for them to be in the right mood. You must wait for them to be in the perfect space, if I may, before you air out. While on the other hand, you'll find that for them, there's never any perfect time. They just come at you. You're quarreling about the food. They're telling you how it's not well cooked. And you're scratching your brains out thinking, well, the food is like you've always loved it. And they're telling you it's not good. Eventually, it wears you out. You start living your life around these people's rules and regulations. You're walking on eggshells, making sure nothing sounds up, even if you stepped on it. You let things go for the sake of peace. Eventually, you start expanding the family. You have kids. Everything seems rosy again. Everything is back to normal. Like the life, the baby is the life of the house. Then you realize again, abuse has started. They are complaining you're spending too much time with the child. They are not helping on the work. They are telling you maybe you're smelling breast milk. You're never excited to see them and all that. And you're like, can you please help me out? They expect you to wake up and you're making breakfast for them as early as possible, like before. And you're like, I spent the entire night up. I can't do that. And then before you know it, someone is slapping you. I'm just trying to paint a picture of what an abusive situation can be like. This kind of marriage is an abusive marriage. Godly marriages are not abusive. A person who is hell-bent on injuring you, even if you told them they are hurting you and they do not care, rather they are watching their own backs, that person is not a godly person. A godly person lives out godly ways. You're gentle, you're kind, you're good. But this person is never forthcoming. You're caught up in this web of deceit and turmoil and pain and anger and resentment and bitterness and, depression. This is a hub that sets up an environment for a child who has been born or who has brought into the family to be narcissistic. The dad here is a narcissist. The mother is a codependent or an empath. An abuser's motive is to dominate and control whoever is around them. Regardless of what you do, there is nothing you can ever do good enough for these people. They'll keep shifting goalposts. When they tell you you're not cooking well, even if you went to the best chef around, hired them to teach you what to do, and you did according to the way the chef directed you, and the chef gives you an A+, the abuser will tell you the salt wasn't enough, or you should have used this other type of company salt. There is nothing good enough for them. That's why you should never blame yourself if you got up in this situation. An emotionally absent parent is usually a shame-based parent. A shame-based parent is abusive in nature. They do not have the ability to connect at an emotional level. That's why you'll find that there is no positive attachment to anything good in their lives, be it their partners or children, parents, siblings, and there is nothing there. The only attachment you'll find they are having is when they are trying to hide the shame, and that is not positive. When a child is born into the world, they come in a neutral state, good and bad. And we see this from the fall of man in Genesis chapter 3. Many times we say the babies are innocent. No, they are not. Everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. The only qualification is to be born. A neutral state in the realm of the spirit is still negative. That's why God says that those who are hot and cold, He'll spit them out, because you're neither here, you're neither there. That wavy mind, that ungrounded person or soul is a hub for the devil. Remember, after the fall, man became ashamed. That's why you find a shame-based parent. The only way to remove that shame is through Christ, because as long as the glory of God was around them, There was no shame. That's why we are told they were naked and not ashamed. After they had eaten the fruit of good and bad, the yin-yang relationship, they became ashamed. And that's why the glory of God departed. They covered themselves with leaves. Now this parent who harbors all the ingredients of the devil, doubt, hate, fear, you name it, envy, jealous, murder, strife, slander, gossip, every negative imaginable thing and unimaginable, you slot it in there. They have this darkness about them. Look up the other videos on the origins of narcissism. Where God is absent, there's darkness. This parent who is an empath or a codependent, these are people who usually have either accepted Christ in their lives, or they have been brought up in godly ways, but they haven't yet given their lives to Christ. However, they manifest the attributes of God because they were trained that way. Now, this healthy parent, when they look at the baby, because they have godly attributes in them, you'll find that the baby is able to see who they are. A baby wants to know who they are. And when you're looking at your baby, the baby feels they are worth something. They are worth being looked at, which means they are valuable. The baby is looking for value from the outside. When they get that value from the outside, it affirms, like, I am something. I am worth being looked at. I am loved. The baby is getting that attachment from the mother. And this affirmation is where you see we are getting the godly nature in the child. When the baby is looking at you, look at the baby. Mothers, look at your babies when you're breastfeeding. Look at the babies when you're bathing them, when you're dressing them up, when you're cleaning up these babies. Look at them. When the baby is cooing at you, coo back. Look at the baby. Put aside the phone, put aside the switch off the TV, put aside the electronics. Look at your baby. What you are doing is the most crucial aspect of the making of a human being. You are literally soul winning your child unto the Lord. When a parent misses this stage, everything is done. When the dad comes around, much as they appear lovey-dovey towards the children, they are playing, they are cooing, they are, making all these beautiful sounds with the baby. Spiritually, that dad is drawing from the baby, not the other way around. Because the dad is empty, this baby is looking into the dad's eyes to see themselves, but because they are dark, the baby can't see anything. That's why sometimes you'll find some babies cry, especially children who will eventually be adults who are sensitive, highly sensitive adults. You'll find that the baby is crying. Each time the dad walks into the room, the baby cries. He hasn't seen the dad, but he has just walked in. Darkness has walked in. That is the spiritual implication of it. The child is looking at the dad and there's nothing. The child gives up. And guess what? The child starts transferring their energies instead to the dad. That is how they draw them. Those days I used to watch Nigerian movies when I think they just come out. And I used to see these witches, they would look at the baby's eyes and light comes out of their eyes, and I'm like, I used to dismiss most of these things. Like, I was that person, like, I would really dismiss them. I was like, that's just acting, that's just this. Until I started realizing these movies are not just movies. These people are telling us stuff they are doing and stuff that's happening out there that many of us are oblivious to. The degree of discernment is low in many of us Christians, but we think we can discern. The evil we've been told is evil is what we discern, is what we see as discernment. No. Discernment is when you can tell a manipulative person from a non-manipulative person in a situation, yet they appear to be both Christians, professing, and their works appear Christian, but there is something distinctive about the spirit of discernment. You know it. You just know it. You can't explain it. You can't say it. You just know it. And you give it time, you see the knowing that you had. Now the child here, when they are looking at the mother, the child is drawing from the mother. The thing is that the Lord fills your cup and it overflows. And this is where we see the overflow into the child. You never lack. You, the mother, you never lack, because a giver never lacks. As you're pouring into this baby, God is pouring into you, because you are soul winning this child. And the Bible tells us a soul winner is wise. When the dad looks at this child, the dad is drawing away from the child. You can see the difference. But what is it? This man who pretends to be born again, a wolf in sheep's clothing, who is carrying out charitable acts by on the outside there, is a monster within the home. But what is it they tell you? Every marriage has its ups and downs. The thing is that godly people do not intentionally go out and start the abuse cycle, the idealization or love bombing. Then they come to the devaluation, then they come to the discard, then the hoovering mixed with the love bombing and idealization. I mean, it is just a continuous pattern. That's how their patterns are. It is a pattern that cannot be broken because it is in their nature. Church has failed to address this. If a child is left like this in that environment for so long, at the beginning the mother may handle, but as time goes on, because of the continuous pattern of abuse, the mother starts dissociating from her environment to try and stay at peace, and the brain is working. The mother will develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Eventually, it will be complex post-traumatic stress disorder. In the meantime, the mother being dissociated, is the house clean? Is this clean? Are the plates organized well? Is this room smelling well? Are the bed sheets ironed the way he loves them? Are his shirts ironed? Is this cooked to perfection? Is this ironed to perfection? Is this? She may be looking at the baby, but the mind is running 100 miles per second. The mother becomes dissociated from the child, and so the child fails to see the mother. The child is beginning to see the mother as a blank slate, like the dad. There's nothing there. And so the child can cry at the beginning, but after crying for so long and realizing there's no one coming to help me, the child withdraws. The child withdraws that affection and love they were using to almost like welcome whoever is going to look at them. But now the mother, they have struggled for so long and the mother has failed to look at them. What does the child do? The child shuts down. Remember, the dad is a blank slate. Now the mother, who has been under severe abuse, is also blank. And what is it? The child has nowhere else to go. So the child also dissociates. That dissociation there is when the child starts to form an idealized parent. This idealized being is perfect and omnipotent. So the child maintains this image in their mind, and that way they start associating themselves with this image. This is where I'll bring in that when Peter walked on water, he maintained that contact. The moment he turned away, he started sinking. The transfiguration. The more you behold Christ, the more you become like him. When you're looking at mirroring, always remember, the more you behold Christ, the more you become like him. The more a child beholds you, the parent, the more the child becomes like you. So now if the child has nothing to behold of you, the child is left to start forming their own person. You can see where the attachment is coming in. We human beings are spiritual. The spiritual being here is Elohim. He created us in his image, and that image is Christ. That's why for us to be restored to the Garden of Eden, we need Christ. In this state, everything appears normal. We don't see any difference. All we know is that life is going on. The child grows up, has gotten to that point of they believe they are perfect, they are omnipotent. The child has missed out on certain crucial stages, such as whole object relations. Whole object relations is simply the ability of a child to see and integrate the likes and dislikes of this human being as a realistic picture. And in so doing, the child is not seeing the person as all good or all bad. 2. Object constancy. Object constancy comes of whole object relations. Object constancy is the ability for the child to maintain a healthy, positive attitude towards the parent whom they are not necessarily in good terms with at that moment. They could be frustrated by the parents' delay to come and pick them up, but the child still maintain that positive attitude even when they're angry with them. Can't find you, is crying, wants breast milk. Walk into the room, the baby is still crying. You want to breastfeed, then the baby throws the head to the other direction. You try to bring back the baby like mad, and you start talking to the baby, apologizing, telling them how loved they are. They eventually get onto the nipple, and the rest is history. They could even be grumbling the entire time, but they are breastfeeding. That child has got object constancy. So you find that a child who has now formed this idealized person has missed out on these crucial stages of whole object relations and object constancy. You cannot develop it in adulthood. Train up, shall not depart. Maybe as a child, seeds were sown of it. Let's say the child had a happy childhood, then like the one I was describing, a child with a healthy mother. Let's say the mother maintained that for a while, maybe past even 3 years or 4, 5, and after a while the mother gave up. That child in future may go out of the way they were brought in. However, given the right therapy and counseling, you'll find these are the people who come back to the way. Why? A seed was sown. And sometimes by the seeds being sown may not be from home. That is another strange thing people miss. The seed being sown could be the neighbor's house help. It could be a teacher. It could be an auntie. It could be an uncle. So sometimes, like, the child is struggling to get an attachment. They will try to look around. They are not getting it from this one. Let's assume there's this teacher who is fully involved in that child's life. That's why teachers never take for granted what you do. Don't think that it's just that you're educating these people who are becoming lawyers, doctors, and seamstresses and all that in future. No. Sometimes you teachers are actually giving children their identity, and that the identity you're giving them is positive. So don't take for granted your teaching profession. And that identity I'm talking about is the way of the Lord. You're teaching them such that in future, the Holy Spirit can convict them based on what you sowed. A child who has not been developed in whole object relations or object constancy, they become numb towards emotions. A child who grows up in an invalidating environment, or parents who are not present. The parents may actually be good people, but they are so busy with work. No one is there to mirror the child. That child is being left to fend for themselves. The other way, you'll find that the parent who is being abused by the other, this parent eventually checks out. So you find that the child is not having either parent present to mirror them. Eventually the child starts forming their own idealized image. So you find the child lacking whole object relations and object constancy. I'll continue with this in the next video. Don't forget to like it. Thank you so much for watching. Blessings.